Hello everyone, this is International Master Robert Jamieson from Kids Unlimited in Melbourne, Australia. And today I want to mention an interesting discussion I had with a friend the other day about the correct move to play in a position. So my friend had put the position into an engine and the engine said, "This is the best move. White should play this move." So my friend said, "Well, clearly we should play this move." But I disagreed. I said we should play the move that the engine said was the second best move. Doesn't sound right, does it? Why would I say that? Well, the point is, when we play chess, most of the time, we are playing a human being. We are not playing against an engine. So, for instance, if the best move, as advocated by the engine, wins, but the reply for the opponent, the best move for the opponent is really obvious, then we haven't posed them any problem. You know, like if there's a 1% chance of our opponent not finding the best reply, it's a problem. But if you play the second best move, perhaps, and the opponent has maybe a 20% chance of not finding the best reply, then maybe that's what we should do. In other words, we're playing the man, not the board. It may not always be correct to play the best, the strongest move in any particular position. I have this a lot with my students. So I discourage them from doing, say, like a capture where the opponent's going to recapture. You haven't posed them any problems. If you do a non-move, the opponent then might have a choice of 4 or 5 different moves to come up with, and they're more likely to make a mistake. So what you're trying to do is get a position where your opponent is going to make a mistake. Now, I've got a lovely game to show you that I stumbled across the other day between someone who was an expert at this, Mikhail Tal, the world champion from 1961 to 63, the magician from Riga. They called him the magician because he was so good at tactics and attacking. So he would try to get positions that he liked that were tactical. There were lots of variations and complications. And even if sometimes maybe his sacrifices weren't correct, the engine said, "No, Mikhail, that was a mistake." He's caused his opponent so much trouble and given him so many options that his opponent, not being an engine, will himself make a mistake, and Tal was pretty confident he could outplay him. So the game in question is a training game between Tal and his trainer, Alexander Koblenz, played in Riga in 1961. I'm guessing maybe they determined what opening they were going to play and then wanted to play a training game to see what could happen in the middle game. So Tal is playing white. So at some stages in the video, we'll pause and see if you can find Tal's moves. All right, here we go. So it's a Sicilian defense. It's a Najdorf variation. All right, now, generally I tell my students not to bring their queen out too early in the game. Why is white bringing his queen out to f3 early in the game? The answer is pretty obvious. He wants to castle queen side. Maybe we're going to have opposite side castling, and then we can have an attacking game, which suits Tal. Queen c7, yes, castles queen side. Knight there. Bishop e2. I think you could also play g4. That's a common move in this position, but bishop e2 is okay. Go away, bishop. Bishop goes away. Then black starts generating some play on the queen side. Then we're going to have opposite side castling. All right, so put your thinking cap on here. Your Mikhail Tal. What move would you play for white? Basically, there's 2 moves to choose from. All right, have you decided? So you can either play a3, the defensive move, stopping b4, or you can play the messy tactical move e5, attacking the rook in the corner and the knight on f6. So you don't get a prize for guessing which one Tal chose. He chose E5. All right, bishop does a counterattack on the queen. What move would you play now if you were Tal? Your queen is attacked. Your opponent's knight is attacked. I think most people would probably play queen G3. So they're attacking the knight and the pawn on G7. It's a fairly complex position. But Tal wants to unbalance the position. And he sees something that interests him, a tactical possibility. So he says, take my queen if you're brave enough. Would you like a queen? And it says, yes, thank you for your queen. Tal takes back. All right. So now Tal is attacking the bishop on E7 and the rook on A8. You could perhaps take on F6 and gambit the rook, but Black decides to play D5. I think the computer takes on F6 and blunts the attack a bit, but White gets, I think, 2 pieces and a rook for a queen or something like that and a few pawns. But D5 looks like a logical move. All right, let's pause again. Your Tal playing White. What move would you play here? Perhaps you take the bishop on E7. Perhaps you take the pawn on G7. Perhaps you do something else. Have you decided? All right. You could take the pawn on G7. It's quite an interesting line. Look here. Swaps. Look here. So subtle threat now of knight takes D5, winning the queen. Knight here, for instance. We could go take. And then Black sacrifices the rook back again. And it's interesting position. All right. Tal didn't do that. He went for the nice sacrifice. Knight takes E6. Hope you saw that one. Right, threatening the queen and the pawn on G7. So Black logically gets rid of the knight. Now we hit him with a check. All right. What would you play as Black? You have 1, 2, 3 legal moves. Maybe Black's move is a slight surprise. He goes G6 and gives White another pawn with check. Why does he do that? Well, if he doesn't, like if he plays King F8, for instance, it's going to be pawn takes E7, check, King G8. And Black's rook is trapped in the corner and his king's sort of trapped in the corner. So he's giving a pawn to give himself a bit of space and perhaps try and get his pieces out. All right, thank you for the pawn with check. King F8. Thank you for the bishop with check, so we're getting some material back. But now Black is attacking the bishop. And he also has another threat. Queen takes F4 check, winning this bishop. So White has a sneaky move. How do we save both bishops? It's not too hard. Bishop G3. So now if Black takes the bishop, which would be silly, pawn check wins the queen. All right, so that was pretty sneaky. Okay, Black plays knight F6. So our bishop is still not really attacked. Okay, the computer likes F5. Queen takes, rook here. Rook here, rook takes, queen takes, pawn up. There, and it's slight edge for Tal. A bit of a messy line. Tal didn't play that. He played the second best line, which is fairly obvious, developing a rook in the corner and putting it on a good spot, attacking E6. Now, Black makes a mistake here. He should probably play Queen D7 to defend the pawn, but he goes for a counter-attack on the knight with B4. Okay. What does Tal play? Again, he doesn't make the best move. The computer says F5 is the best move. There. And it's still pretty messy. White's winning well on the king side. It's a little bit better for white. But Tal takes the pawn, giving up his knight. What's he do now? F5, so the bishop's attacking the queen. Now Black makes a bit of a boo-boo. He has a choice of moving the queen or taking on B2. He should probably take on B2. King takes. And then he's opened up White's king a bit, but White's got bishop E5 coming up. It's still a bit messy. Instead, Black goes Queen B7, threatening Queen B2 mate. Forcing B3, but now Tal's king is looking a lot safer. And we have bishop E5 coming up. What can Black do? Queen D7, bishop E5. Now it looks like Black's position is collapsing, but he does what one normally does when you're defending, return some of the material. See if you can blunt the attack by doing a counter sacrifice. So Black sacrifices the queen, takes, and now gobbles the bishop. All right, so Tal is a whole rook down. He's got a couple of nice passed pawns in the middle, and it's his go. Can he salvage the game? What would you play here? It's not too hard. We've got to attack things. So rook F1 attacking the knight. The knight is pinned. The knight cannot be protected. So Black could, if he wanted to play something like this, maybe we go check, king here, takes, bishop here perhaps, and we've still got a pretty strong pawn, and we have a lot of pawns for the exchange, so you'd say advantage Tal. Black didn't do that. He put his knight on H7. All right, so Tal grabs the rook. Black takes back. All right, so Tal's got a few pawns for a knight. What would you play here now? Does he run out of attack, or is he still going okay? It's a really cute move. Hope you saw it. Rook F8. Now, clearly, if knight takes rook, pawn equals queen. Now, queen on that passed pawn will soon win. So Black plays rook takes rook. Looks silly on the face of it, but pawn takes rook, knight takes, and now pawn up. Threatening the knight and threatening E8 equals queen as well. Black only has one move. King F7, we take the knight, and now we're in a pawn endgame, and Tal's just going to waddle over and gobble all those pawns and win easily. But what a cute game. Sacrifices his queen, promotes his pawn to another queen, a few other sacrifices along the way. The computer didn't like a couple of his moves, but they were good enough to confuse his opponent, who came up with counter blunders. So, what's the lesson? So don't always play the best computer move on the board if your opponent has an easy and obvious response. Your job is to play a move that is going to induce or have a good chance of inducing a blunder or mistake from your opponent. And people like Tal are confident when they do a sacrifice that they can outplay their opponent in a tactical, messy situation, even if theoretically it may not be the best line. All right, I hope you found that interesting, and I'll see you in the next video.